Hey, you fans, and welcome to the Big Blue Box podcast. My name's Gary.
My name's Adam.
And this is episode 391. Hey, you fans, welcome back to another episode. Hope you're keeping well and safe. And that you've all had a cracking week and that you've all managed to do something Doctor Who related. Every time, dude.
Oh,
you sit on it.
That, actually.
Yeah, so you managed to do something Doctor Who related. And you listened to last week's ep. You listened to the old episode last week where we reviewed The Invasion of Time, Fourth Doctor story. That's an interesting one. That we had some varied reviews on that one, and
opinions were very varied on that one, weren't they?
Yeah, loads.
Safe to say.
I think we had didn't we have a 1? I think, or a 0.5 or something. I can't remember exactly, but there was a big swing. I think we had an 8 or a 9 or something, and then we had a 0 or a 1. So. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yes.
On the old reviews, that one. And this week, we will be cracking into our review for this week's episode, which is The Monster of Peladon. We're going back to Peladon, dude.
Yes, we've been putting it off for a while, haven't we? This revisit to Peladon, but we're finally going there.
We have for a little while, haven't we? Yeah. But these things need reviewing. Can't just let them sit by the wayside. Yeah.
When did we review Curse of Peladon? Do you remember?
I think
it feels like a very long time ago.
Yeah, I think it was. The Curse of I'm sure that was 2021 or something like that.
Yeah, it feels like forever. Because I must admit, when I was watching this again last night, I was trying to remember that story because it's so long since I've rewatched it, and the last time would have been when we reviewed it, whenever that was.
Yeah, it was ages ago. It may have been before that. I can't remember exactly, but so just to give you a bit of a spoiler, dude, and everyone, on the new website design, which is going to be coming out reasonably soon, there's going to be a whole web page with all this information on it. So we get asked this all the time. It's like, guys, what podcast episode did you review this story on? Because I can't find it or whatever. And us, ourselves, we also have this same problem that we're going through right now, which is like, I'm sure we reviewed it at some point roughly then, but we're not quite sure. So yeah, that will be a massive help to everyone involved, not just you guys, but for us as well. So yeah, that'll be going up on the new website at some point soon. But yeah, when did we do that? I don't know. It might have been sooner than.
Well, I was curious because. I'm curious because I seem to remember, I think you enjoyed Curse of Peladon more than me from my memory, but it is quite a while ago. I actually can't, but I'm pretty sure you enjoyed it more because I'm not a big fan of Curse of Peladon. I find it a pretty hard-going story, and that's considered the better of the two Peladon stories, which always sets me up on a back foot for Monster of Peladon. So I was trying to remember, but I'm pretty sure you enjoyed it more than me. I think you gave it a higher score. I've tried Googling it, and the only thing that's come up is our writer Jordan Shortman's review of it, which was was on the 14th of March 2022. So I've managed to find Jordan's review of it, but I haven't found out when we reviewed it.
Yeah, when was that? I'll have to dig that out. We've definitely done it though. And
we'll dig it out. We'll wait for the new website. We'll wait for the new website to confirm it.
Yeah,
maybe we haven't.
I do remember liking it a bit more than you, if memory serves.
I'm sure you did. Yeah. It's one of those stories that a lot of people do like, but it's one that I just find quite hard going. Curse of Peladon. It's not one of my favourites, but I know there are people out there that like it.
Yeah, it's definitely an acquired taste, I think is the best way to put it. both Peladon stories, which we'll get onto in a second. But I don't think you've done much in terms of Doctor Who stuff, have you, dude? I might be wrong, but you've been travelling a lot the last week. Have you done anything Who related, though?
No, I haven't done anything Who related, mate. I'm just settling back in. I'm back over the pond in Texas, sunny old Texas. So I've just been getting settled back in here in my sort of home from home now. But what's weird is, so they have a Doctor Who channel over here on the Roku channel or something it's called. And I watched Monster of Peladon on my little iPad. So I'm watching it on this small screen, all 6 episodes. I switched it off, having finished reviewing it. And then the following morning, I turned on the Doctor Who channel on Roku or whatever it's called. And there it was on the big screen. I was like, oh, they're showing on here. What a coincidence.
Oh, cool.
So I probably could have, I just thought that was a really odd coincidence. But I had to watch this on my little iPad, thanks to the iPlayer. Because that's the other thing. For regular listeners that will remember when we had to take a break when I first moved over to the US was... apart from the time difference causing problems for us to record, the other reason it was hard for us to record was because I can't watch the episodes over here. Like I didn't have access to the random episodes that we needed to finish off reviewing the stories we haven't done. But of course, that's all changed since I was last back in the US, because now everything's back on the iPlayer. So it's made our lives a lot easier. As long as we can find a time when we can both get together to record with the time difference, we now have the episodes available to watch. So that's made a big difference in terms of us carrying on these reviews, because that was a bit of a problem before. I couldn't watch them over here unless I managed to get lucky and just find the episode we were doing on the Roku channel, which I don't think is very likely. So now we have the good old iPlayer back catalogue, the Whoniverse. We're back in business.
We're back in business, yeah. It's a bit timey-wimey, the old recording sketch, but we got it.
Yeah, we got it.
It's all good.
Yeah.
I've not anything Doctor Who related either. I've just carrying on with the Long Game book. I've about halfway through that now, which is very, very cool. And other than that, not much else, dude. And it's been really slow for news as well. There's been no big drops, nothing. There's been a couple of little bits, but we don't tend to focus on every little tiny thing. Long-time listeners will know that we normally save that for just popping stuff on the socials and chatting on Twitter or Discord or whatever for those things, but nothing really worthy of, a deep dive in the news section, really. So the only couple of things that have been knocking around is the BBC have released a new script vault or similar, where they've put hundreds of scripts for public display, and one of those is the audition script that Ncuti went through.
Oh, right.
Which sounds rather cool, and the setup for that, he's trapped inside this room or inside the TARDIS, one of the two, and there's another character in there, and it's all about Ncuti kind of giving us this vibe of like, being a bit manic and being a bit crazy, but also a plan to get everything sorted out. And then there's a bit of a twist at the end where this character that's locked in a room with him is I can't remember exactly, but there's like a bit of a twist with that character, and this went on for about 8 or 9 pages or so. So that's a fairly interesting read to go and do that. I'll stick a link in the show notes to it. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And that's about it really in terms of news, dude. There's just not much. We're in a real slowdown with the old news at the minute. There's really not much that's come to light.
It does feel like it's gone deathly quiet, doesn't it? Like, where are these spin-offs that were supposed to be announced flipping ages ago? It just seems like everything's gone really, really quiet, which might mean there's something just around the corner. Normally when we say this, something like will get announced tomorrow or something, before the podcast goes out, and we'd be like, we just missed the news. But yeah, it does seem really quiet at the minute, mate.
It does. Yeah. So not much cracking in the world of Doctor Who, not at the moment at least anyway. So with that being said, before we crack on with our review and all that stuff, make sure you are following or subscribing to the podcast in your favourite podcast app of choice. You'll find links to everything on the website, which is bigblueboxpodcast.co.uk, or just head over to your app and just do a search of the Big Blue Box. You'll find us on there. And make sure you follow so you don't miss an episode when they land every week. And we also have a monthly episode with the writing team as well. That's called The Round Table, where we just grab that lot and we just chat about random subjects or news or whatever, or review stuff with those guys. So make sure you do that. And also on the website are links off to the socials. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, all that stuff. Come and give us a follow, connect over there and chat with us as we post lots of little bits of Doctor Who tidbits throughout the week and stuff. And we got a free Discord server as well, so hop in there and chat Doctor Who with other Who fans. Link is on the website. And make sure you check out Adam's channel as well. Don't forget to remember to do that. He's on YouTube. It's, of course, The Geek's Handbag.
The Geek's Handbag. Yeah, I'm working away on a little video. Well, not as we speak, but I have got my laptop with me over here. And I'm working on some new stuff. So, yeah, go check out my YouTube channel, The Geek's Handbag. It's mainly Doctor Who stuff. He's editing a video right now. That's why he's not concentrating. Yeah, multitasking over here. Yep. And actually, I'm finding it hard to knuckle down and do it now. Actually, I've been really slack with this video, but I am getting there. Yeah, we'll expect that soon, I guess. Then. Yeah, in a month's time. In a month. In all seriousness, go and check out Adam's channel. So much cool geekery stuff over there. You'll not be disappointed. Grab a cup of tea and get comfy and watch all of Adam's content over there. So, review time, dude. What we got? Yeah, so this week we are going back to Peladon, as Gary said, for the second instalment of that saga, which is The Monster of Peladon.
One of our people has been killed. The miners are terrified and refuse to work. What explanation do you offer us?
One of the guards was telling some wild story. He said he saw more aliens, appearing as if by magic in the tunnels.
Enemy spies, agents from Galaxy 5 sent here to cause trouble.
Aliens. You are accused both of sacrilege and of sabotage. Do you confess?
No, we don't. I don't know what.
Silence! The girl and the doctor have gone to face the judgment of Agador.
Doctor, there's something in here with us.
Do not move.
Something alive.
You are my prisoners.
You are my prisoners.
Peladon. Will be ours. We need some throat sweets.
Everyone, run out for more strepsils immediately.
I shall incinerate you.
Should we do the review with that voice the whole time?
Oh, wow, yeah, that would be something.
That'd be weird, wouldn't
it?
Yeah. Yes, The Monster of Peladon. It was first broadcast back on the 23rd of March, 1974. It's a six-parter, and the last episode went out on the 27th of April, 1974. It was written by Brian Hales, directed by Lenny Mayne, overseen by Terence Dix and Barry Letts, and stars John Pertwee as the Third Doctor in his penultimate story, as the Doctor, Elizabeth Sladen as Sarah Jane, and a fairly decent-sized supporting cast. And the synopsis is: the Doctor returns to Peladon 50 years after his last visit to find Queen Talira, daughter of the late King Peladon, on the throne. A tense labour dispute between the Pel nobility and miners is worsened when apparitions of their deity Agador attack and kill several miners. The Galactic Federation desperately needs Trisilicates for its war against Galaxy 5 and sends its brutal Ice Warrior troopers to ensure production. The Doctor soon discovers a devious plot at the heart of Agador's appearances. Fairly meaty synopsis that one. Quite like that. Normally it's just a sentence like the Doctor lands in the TARDIS and stuff ensues. So that's good. Right then, The Monster of Peladon, dude. What did you reckon to this one?
I see, this could be one where I get the feeling this is one where we may have a different opinion again. A bit like, what was that Pertwee one we did the other week that you really liked that I found really boring? Was it Frontier in Space?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got a feeling this could be a similar thing.
You reckon?
Let's see. So, Monster of Peladon, I think it's got some very interesting ingredients, right? I think the actual stories are good. I think the actual cast give... they give there's a lot of effort going into their performances. I feel like they're giving something. I think Pertwee's good. I think the Ice Warriors are cool. I like the Ice Warriors. So there's lots of things I like about it. And yet, I find it so boring to watch. I've never been so happy for a story to finish. And I tell you what, I broke this up into 2 episodes, right? So I watched 2, 2, and 2 to try, because I knew it was going to be a slog. I know it's not highly regarded, this story. I know it's supposed to be the sort of worst of the 2 Peladon stories. So I thought I'd split it up, and I thought hopefully I would enjoy it a bit more. But even watching it 2 episodes at a time, mate, I was on episode 5, I was thinking, I don't know if I can get through 2 more episodes of this. It just goes round and round in circles. And the thing that's sort of bugging me about this story is that I don't know why I find it so boring, because it's got plenty of stuff going on. And as I say, the cast are pretty good. It should be better than it is. I don't know. And I don't think it's because I was in like the wrong mood for it or anything like that, because I think this is probably the 3rd time I've watched it, and I feel the same every time. Like, I really struggle to get through this one. And a bit like Curse of Peladon, I don't think I'm going to watch this again anytime soon, because I just find it such a slog. But there is part of me that wonders why, mate. There are things about it which I think are good. There are things about it that I feel make it a decent story. I don't think it's bad. It's not. I don't watch it and think like the production's bad, or there's nothing I can sort of pinpoint why I find it so boring. But I have to be honest, I really did. I was so glad when I got to the end of part 6. I was like, oh, thank God we've got that one done and out the way, because it doesn't click with me for whatever reason. And I'm hoping, as we talk through this story, I may be able to work out why, because as I said, I don't think it's bad. I don't watch it and feel like the actors are terrible or anything like that. There's nothing I can really grab onto to sort of pinpoint why I find this story so uninteresting. Even the plot's sort of fairly good. It's just, maybe it's just dragged out too much. But I was bored pretty much by the end of episode 2. I was kind of, I got to the end of episode 2 and thought, God, another 4 stories of this. I don't know. So I don't know, mate. This one just doesn't work for me at all, really. But I do have positives to say about it, despite that. But yeah, I was glad to get this one finished. What do you reckon?
I see. I'm kind of along the same road. I'm on the same path as you on this one, I think, dude.
I thought you might liked it. I don't know why.
Well, there are positives to it, certainly, and it's not a terrible story overall. I mean, it's just I think the writers, they try to inject a little bit of variation into what's going on, because essentially the story is just there's a saboteur, isn't there, within the ranks of what's the queen's name? What's the queen's name? Talira.
Yeah, I don't know how to say Talira. Yeah.
And what's the guy's name who's like the scientist?
Gebik?
No.
Oh no, you mean Ellie?
What's his name?
Ecclesley,
yeah. Ecclesley, he's basically in cahoots with the Ice Warriors and as an extension of that, Galaxy 5. So there's like this kind of underpinning sort of narrative that's like something's going on. There's like some kind of sabotage stuff going on, and it doesn't really get revealed until later on in the story with Eckersley and so on. And then in the midst of all that, you've got the miners having a dispute with the sort of upper echelons of the sort of higher society of Peladon, you know. So the miners think they're being treated poorly because they're bringing in it's basically like a hark back to the old tradition of sort of manual labourers and stuff being replaced by machinery, essentially, right? You know, it's like an age-old thing. Much. So Eckersley and, you know, is it what's the we're terrible with names, dude. Autron. So they're like, they want to sort of optimize the mining process. So they bring in this special machine that can like evaporate walls essentially, and you know, make the mining process a lot quicker. So the miners are like, well, this is no good for us because we're going to get replaced essentially, which is no good. So there's like this revolt that's happening, and then within that you have this sort of power struggle between the leader who's Gebek, who's like the leader, self-appointed leader, but then you've got this nutter in the ranks as well, Etis. He's a bit more sort of he wants action immediately, and he feels like the only way to do that is to essentially assassinate the Queen, and take out, because he wants to use that machine to target the Citadel and wipe everybody out. And then so he's got like much grander plans, and he's a bit of a nutter, whereas Gebek's a bit more diplomatic. He can see both sides. He can see the struggle and what needs to be done for his own peeps, the miners, but he also understands that unlike Etis, you can't just go in all guns blazing. That will achieve nothing. So he's a bit more level-headed, and that comes to fruition as he sort of teams up with the Doctor a little bit later on. So and that's the thing that one of the positives to this story for me was that the way that Pertwee's Doctor was written for this, he was really diplomatic in this one. So there was no there was a little bit of karate going on, a little bit of judo, some fight scenes, some other bits going on, but for the most part, the Doctor's basically there to mediate everything. He tries to calm everybody down. He knows that the miners are kicking off. He calms them down. He knows that Ortron's a bit of a hothead. He wants to just execute everyone that's potentially a spy and everything. So he tries to sort that out. He even calms down the monster, doesn't he? With the Haroon, does all that stuff. Business, yeah. And then when the Ice Warriors turn up, and he calms them down. So that's one of the cool things for me. The Doctor wasn't there just to reverse the polarity, which is the crux of some stories. He's there to actually get involved and make sure everything is done without bloodshed, essentially. So story-wise, it's nothing groundbreaking. He's back on Peladon. All this is kicking off, and he's there to say. Even Sarah's like, "Can we not just go back to the TARDIS? Can we not just bugger off?"
She reminded me of Tegan. Can't we just go home? It's like,
yeah. And it's a lovely little moment. The Doctor looks at her and he's like, and abandon our friends, who need us at this time. And she looks at him with that face of like, "Of course you're right. You're always right.
Yeah.
Let's sort it out." So, story-wise, dude, I thought it was a fairly, I don't like using the word nice, but it was a fairly nice story in that, it didn't have these dark moments that you see in some, there's nothing bad, but nothing wrong with that at all, but there wasn't any sort of dark moments. It was just it's played out across the 6 parts. But the only problem is, and I think it's slightly different for this one, because I think what we normally say with 6-parters is that you could easily cut out 2 episodes. It could be a 4-parter or even a 3-parter. With this one, I think the story is there, but like you said, it goes round in circles a lot more than your average 6-parter. So in especially episodes 2 to 5, you have an awful lot of the Doctor being allowed to wander around, but then he's not. And then he gets thrown back into the communications room. And then you have the Queen sort of like, I'm only on the throne by default, just because, my father didn't have a son. I really shouldn't be here. So I'll just take Ortron's lead and he can do the thing. It's not till Sarah, gives her a bit of a telling off. And then you have, Alpha Centauri, who's like sort of, hovering around and just, she's also trying to make peace and sort everything out. But that same conversation and that same little story plot of the miners going off to do that thing, the Doctor goes off, then he gets captured, and all that goes round and round and round.
It does. And also the Doctor gets killed 3 times. Like, the Doctor's dead. He's dead in a cave. Oh no, he's alive. The Doctor's next to the Sonic's lance. He's been blown up and he's dead. Oh no, he's alive. The Doctor's in the room with that sonic wave and he's dead. The Doctor's dead. No, he's alive. It's like, oh gosh. It really goes round and round quite a lot, this story. Yeah. So I don't even think it's a case of you can just chop out a couple of episodes up. I think this could be a 3-parter, dude. Honestly, the thing is, when you read out the synopsis and stuff, like you said, there is a good story at the heart of it, isn't there? And I do like the world building. I do think there's some interesting characters. You've got lots of different fractions of groups of people. And I do like the fact it carries on from the Curse of Peladon, where they were just getting started with the Federation, all that stuff. So I do love the fact that we've gone back to Peladon, and it's like a continuation and finding out where they are now. And Queen Silaria, whatever her name is taken over from, her dad. And so, do you know what I mean? I like all that sort of stuff. I think there is an interesting story at the heart of it. But yeah, it just goes round and round. And also I think the fact that it is so stuck in those same 4 sets, really, that doesn't help. We keep going back to that cave, back to that room, back to the throne, back to the room. And it over 6 episodes, that really starts to get, maybe that's why it just loses me. It really starts to get boring seeing those same locations. Like this is all in studio, isn't it? It's no or is the caves?
No, it's all studio.
It's all studio. Yeah. It just So I think that doesn't help in terms of making it visually appealing. Because I have to say, Lenny Mayne, the director, I feel like he did a fairly good job trying to make this exciting. Like there are some high shots, there's some quick zooms, like when the Ice Warriors appear, and thank God they do to bring something else into this story halfway through. But I have to say, I think Lenny Mayne, as the director, I think he did try to inject some life into this. But yeah, when you've only got those sort of couple of sets to work with over 6 episodes, it does get a bit of a struggle, I think, for him.
Yeah. No, I've got that on my notes as well, dude. That the sets, there's only literally 3 or 4 sets, isn't there? There's the throne room, there's the communications room, then you've got the temple, and then a bunch of corridors, really. There's a couple of little...
and they're very small corridors as well, aren't there? Just like one corridor with a blanket on the wall.
Yeah, and there's a couple of little adjacent bits where the miners have some scuffles, and, that bit, little doorways that they've carved out as the corridor you can see on the other side of it and stuff. But, yeah, when you've got that going round and round, like you said, over 6 episodes, and it starts off like that as well. You've got that opening shot of... It looks like an old... like a really old Hammer horror film, you've got the lightning strikes and like gothic sort of castle it looks like in the side of a mountain. Once you get that out of the way and the miners go, the opening bit where Agador turns up and kills one of the miners, and then the TARDIS lands, right from the off, you're in those corridors, and once you've seen one of them, and there's one, I think it's episode 4. It's episode 4 or 5, might be episode 5, where the miners are they're making their way slowly to the throne room because they want to overpower the Ortron or the Queen and so on. And there's a bit where Sarah's walking down the corridor as well, and it just loops and repeats. There's like literally 5 or 6 scenes, and all they've done is they've got the actors to walk down the corridor, cut, run down that air again, we'll move the camera a little bit, and then they walk down the same corridor, and it goes over and over again. And you think, so you're right, dude. You're absolutely right. I think Lenny Mayne really tried to do something a little bit different, but it ends up just being, like the time and money and the techniques involved to try and make those very small amount of sets look different and appear different just fails a little bit, because we can all tell that they've just run down that corridor. All you've done is reset them and put them back to the other bit and move the camera a little bit. So when that happens over and over and over and over again over a few episodes, it does start to feel a little bit like, oh, we've been down this corridor like a billion times. And it also gets to the point where you think, surely us as the viewer, we can see, that you've been down this corridor a billion times. As the character, you'd think, well, I know this place like the back of my hand. Why am I sort of hiding over here when I know that? Anyway, that's just the old classic Who kind of conundrum that writers and directors have to sort of navigate their way through, I suppose, with that old stuff. I was going to
say, a lot of Doctor Who stories have, the same 3 or 4 sets. It's not uncommon. I think it's just because they are quite dull sets as well, aren't they? They're quite gloomy and stuff. It's just not visually very exciting story to watch, And I said, thank God the Ice Warriors come into it halfway through, because it does inject something new into the story, which is much needed. But I have to say, even when they come into it, it's not a particularly good story for the Ice Warriors. I mean, I think how'd you say his name? The Lord, Ice Lord, whatever his name is.
Azaxia.
Azaxa, yeah. Azaxa does a bit of the old Darth Vader breathing. I mean, he's pretty good. He's got a little bit of an edge to him, and he's a little bit creepy and scary. But the rest of the Ice Warriors, and I do love the Ice Warriors, by the way, but the rest of them in this story kind of plod around. They look a bit bored. they do the occasional sort of shooting with these funny little, don't know what they are. Looks like a little torch, doesn't it? And I'm thinking, you got a gun on your arm. Why have they been given these silly little guns to hold? They should be shooting with those guns on their arms. That's what I like about the Ice Warriors. But yeah, it's not a good story for the Ice Warriors. So although I'm glad they're in it to inject something new halfway through, they are a bit cumbersome and ploddy, and they're not very scary. I don't think they're utilised particularly well in this story. Yeah. I think the best one is the Ice Lord. You know, he's quite good. But yeah, the actual Ice Warriors themselves aren't particularly good in the story either, which is a shame.
No, that is a shame. Yeah, because when they turn up, you think, right, okay, it's, you know, Beep's going to get real
here
now.
we go.
Here we go. Yeah,
that's it. Yeah, the Ice Warriors are here. Come on.
Yeah, but they just get relegated to just sort of guard duty, really. They're just, you know, it's like, you stay here and watch the Doctor. You go off and, you know, post this letter for me. You go off and do this. It just feels like mundane sort of tasks. So they don't really do much, really. So story-wise, dude, it appears on the surface that there's lots going on. But really, when you boil it all down, you know, Galaxy 5, they've got beef with the Federation. The people of Peladon have pledged their allegiance to the Federation, so they're in cahoots and all that. And then there's a little bit of espionage going on, and that's it. And then there's like a bit of infighting with the miners and stuff. And that's your lot, really. So story-wise, it's fairly simplistic when you sort of boil it down, but it's just nothing groundbreaking, really. Let's talk about some characters. What did you think too? Let's talk about the Queen. Let's talk about what's her name? Queen Talira, because she was in it a lot. She's in it multiple times in every episode, and it's a nice relationship that she builds up with Sarah Jane, because it takes them a while, doesn't it? It takes her a while to build up a complete trust in the Doctor and Sarah Jane, because she's got Autron in her ear. You know, he's very cynical, and he's very, you know, so he's like all the time. He's like he's a bit of a coward, though. I will say that. We'll get onto him in a second, but like the Doctor will have a conversation with the Queen. They'll do that thing. They'll walk out. Then he waits until they've left the room, and then he's like, "My Queen, you know, they're not to be trusted." He's like, "Where were you like 10 seconds ago saying that, you know, to these guys?" But anyway, so he's all the time. He's like that voice in her ear. No backbone, yeah. So and then she's like, "Oh, you know, I don't know. You might be right. Oh, I don't know." And then you've got Alpha Centauri, who's like, "You know, I've seen the Doctor in action before. You know, he's the real deal, and you know, everything's cool that now he's here. You know,
see the Doctor." You have to do the voice.
I can see that. You know, so
you got to do the voice. The Doctor is here. I can't get high enough.
Oh, no. Yeah, I can't get high enough either. But yeah, so the Queen's got like various voices like being aimed at her. So she can't make up her mind properly. You can tell that she's actually, I quite liked her performance, you know. So Nina Thomas, the thing that I liked about her performance is you could see her internal struggle. You could see that her instinct was saying, I do actually trust these people. There's no reason for these guys to turn up and just, you know, lay all these lies on the table and try and do whatever. But she's got these voices that are in her ear constantly, and she's like, oh, you know, I have to sort of follow counsel, because, like, you know, she has this kind of internal to-in and throw-in, like, yes, I'm the Queen, but I shouldn't be here. So I don't really feel like I'm good enough, so I'll just take Autron's lead. He's wise, you know, he does all the stuff. And it's not until later on that she sort of, you know, she realises that the Doctor is there to help, because the Doctor's basically, you know, is meant to have killed somebody, but you know, that person turns up and she's like, oh, cool. And then Sarah Jane gives her a bit of advice, you know, about sort of women's libs and women's libbers and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then she finds herself. She finds her voice. She finds herself. She stands up to Autron. She stands up to the Ice Warriors and so on. And so, so as a character that's in it a lot, but is not a well-known character, if that makes sense, within Classic Who, I thought she was pretty sweet, dude.
No, I did. I liked her performance as well. And I think that's an interesting little story thread that she's taken over from the king who when he died, but he didn't have a son. So, like the whole women's lib thing, they could have really played up to that. They do touch on it, like you said, slightly when Sarah Jane talks there about it. Says, stand up for yourself. You're the queen, And I to be honest with you, mate, I would have, without it being too on the nose, I think they could have played up with that story a little bit more than they did, because I really wanted her to see her like really come into her own. We get it a little bit. She starts to sort of stand up for herself and make decisions and become the queen. And at the end, she is, relegating roles to people. But I wanted to see a bit more of that, to be honest, because she's quite feeble and mousy, isn't she, at the beginning? And I wanted to see her by the end being like, I am queen, a really sort of strong performance. So I did like her, and I did like that whole story thread. I just would have liked to have seen it built up a bit more, because I think there was more mileage in that, to be honest with you. I really sort of wanted to see her putting people in their place by the end of the story and becoming like a, proper sort of ruler, the queen. Whereas she didn't quite, she was still quite timid even at the end, wasn't she? Like the doctor says, or is it Sarah says to her, why don't you make Gebek,
the
make him give him a role. And she's like, oh really, should I? And I'm like, no, she should be, by this point she should be like, yes, Gebek, get over here, you're going to do this. So I think they could have played up to that a bit more. But yeah, she was good though. I like her. I think she was pretty good in the role. She's got she was good.
Yeah, she was cool. Yeah. What about Autron then? Chancellor Autron, played by Frank Gatliff. So he was, I'm pretty sure he's been in Doctor Who before. I could be wrong.
He does look familiar.
He looks familiar, yeah. But he had that. We've seen this type of actor play these roles a million times in Classic Who, haven't we? This very kind of almost sort of army major kind of vibe that he gives off, very proper, very stiff upper lip, shoulders back, talk very loudly and, and all that stuff. And his character was interesting as well, because he comes round at the end as well, doesn't he? He's, before he bites the dust, he comes round as well. He realises that he's made a mistake, basically. He shouldn't have condemned the Doctor and Sarah Jane as early as he should have done. And he tries to save the
Queen. He was throwing him down a pit at one point.
Exactly,
like, get down that pit.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So, and at the end, he sort of comes round because he attempts to save the Queen, doesn't he? He runs in front of her and, and sacrifices himself. So he comes round in the end. But so I don't think he has quite the transformation that the Queen has throughout the story. It takes him a while to come round to that. But he was one of those characters that you sort of like to dislike, if that makes sense. Yeah, and I thought he had a good performance. Like, you can tell that some actors really buy into it, and Frank Gatliff, he was really doing it. So yeah, he was pretty cool.
I was going to say he was chewing the scenery a little bit. It was a little bit sort of pantomime villain, although he wasn't actually a villain. But I really liked him. I actually thought he was one of the best sort of people in it. Because he was, like you said, he really bought into the role. He totally got the character that he was playing. Like almost he was sort of just like a second away from twiddling his moustache in some scenes. But I liked him. He managed to walk that line between being, villainous but likable. And yeah, I thought he was one of the better people in it, mate. I was even a little bit sad when he got shot. I was like, oh no, poor Autron.
Poor
like,
Autron.
Yeah. He injected some life into the scenes when I was getting quite bored. So I liked him. I thought he was cool. I mean, he had to go. I mean, it was inevitable that he was going to get killed. But yeah, I thought he was good in it. He gave this story a much needed boost, I thought. In terms of performance, yeah,
dude. Yeah, I quite liked his performance. Yeah, and it's like I said, he's one of those characters where even though he's a complete dick through 90% of his time in the story, you kind of like that, because if everyone's nice and everyone's good, there's no variety and no sort of character tension, or there's no mixing it up, So it's cool that there's that kind of character to to sort of be like he tries to be the voice of reason to the Queen, but he's got his own motives that cloud that. So he's not giving her clear, balanced guidance. He just wants to execute them. So instead of like, and the Doctor even says, doesn't he, at the beginning, he's like, how can you say this? You're not give us a trial or anything. And he's just like, well, I don't care about that. Just, off with their heads sort of thing. So, yeah.
And it's fun. It's fun watching him just dig himself in a hole all the time. Isn't it? It's like he's so full of himself that he's 100% right. And it's just fun to actually watch him digging himself deeper and deeper into the ground every time. So it was a fun character, I thought.
Let's talk about the two sort of prominent characters from the mining group then. So you had Gebek, played by Rex Robinson, and then you had
If
Etis.
I had £1 for every time someone said Gebek in this story, I'll tell you. Gebek!
Yeah.
Gebek! Gebek!
Gebek.
Yeah.
You little bleeder. Yeah, and then you had Etis as well. So he's the one that goes off the rails a little bit, played by Ralph Watson. So those two. And again, so that's one of the things that's one of the positives that I really did like about Brian Hales's script and his story, is that you had this push and pull all the time throughout the story. And what I mean by that is you had the Queen and Autron, you had the Doctor and Sarah, you had Eckersley and Alpha Centauri for the most part, and then you had Gebek and Etis, and they're both kind of at opposite ends of the spectrum of what they feel should be right and what should be done. And that's personified really well with these two characters. As I mentioned earlier, you've got Gebek, who's very level-headed. He wants to do the right thing by the miners, but at the same time realizes that you can't just assassinate people and start causing trouble and expect to get what you want. Whereas Etis is more like, let's just go nuts and just take over the capital, take over the citadel, and then everything will be cool then, because we'll have our own, we can rule Peladon if we take out the Queen and everything. So so there's that kind of tension between those two, and it does come to a bit of a head, doesn't it? He goes really nuts, Etis, towards the end. He kills another miner and he goes nuts, and then he's out the picture himself. He gets because he has a good scrap with the Doctor, right, before the machine gets exploded.
It's because he completely loses it. Yeah.
He loses it. He loses the plot. So although Gebek, he gets name dropped an awful lot, I think he is an important character in the story, because if you think about the the four main groups of collections of people that are going on, you've got the Peladon peeps, you've got the Doctor and Sarah, you've got the miners, and then you've got the Ice Warriors when they finally turn up. So he's an important character, just like the Queen, really, because there has to be some kind of although all the miners themselves, all the actors that play the miners, they're all very samey, aren't they? They're all like these they're all like these Cockney actors who are hired just to sort of make noises behind those two. There was
one that's doing some tremendous axe. He's like in the background and he's swinging this axe, but he's making sure that he doesn't quite hit the ground, because obviously there's nothing there. This is tremendous acting going on in the background by one of the extras. But Gebek and Etis, they do stand out, and again they do add something to the story which keeps it interesting. And once you get over the humbug haircuts, they're actually pretty good, those two.
Yeah, pretty snazzy. That'll make a comeback. Cool that look, defo.
It needs to.
Yeah. Yes, they were pretty cool. And all the other miners they're all cast pretty much the same. Very similar actors, very similar voices. They just rally around whoever is shouting the loudest, whether it's Gebek or Etis. So they were pretty cool. What about Eckersley then, played by Donald Gee? Because did you suspect that he was a traitor to Peladon? Because I didn't see that one coming until a bit later on.
I didn't actually, no. And it's funny because when he does turn traitor, or when he does reveal he's a traitor, I felt like I should have seen that coming. I thought, actually, that should have been obvious, because he's like this weird little side character that doesn't fit in with any of the groups of people, you know, sort of like in his own in that control room. So I felt like I should have seen it coming, but I didn't. No, so that was quite a cool little twist.
Yeah, samesies. Yeah, I didn't see that until a bit later on. There was little tiny points where I thought, he's a little. Is he? No. Because he seems like he has a like Ortron in some parts of it. He seems like he's very loyal to the Queen, you know, and everything's cool. So yeah, he was a cool character though. There was especially those last few scenes that he's in where he takes people hostage and he kills one of the miners, doesn't he? No, not one of the miners. He kills one of the Queen's guards. You know, those guys with the very short skirts.
Oh, yeah.
Look a bit like Roman centurions almost. But
that's it.
But yeah, he kills one of them. And when he starts to lose it a little bit, because he knows at that point that no one's coming to save him. So he has to escape off of Peladon somehow. And he starts to take hostages. He kills people. You can tell that he starts to think, I'm up against the ropes here. But he ultimately meets his doom. He's another one that bites the dust. There's a few deaths in this story, isn't there? There are a few. Yeah. There are a few.
He had to go though, mate. He had to.
Yeah, another one had to go. Yeah.
But Donald Glee, who played him, I thought was he's got a very interesting face, isn't he? He's one of those actors that's kind of, I don't know, it's interesting to look at on screen. And I thought his performance was pretty good because, like you said, you felt like there might be some more to him, but he also seemed like quite a nice guy in those early couple of episodes. Like he's with Sarah for quite a lot of it, isn't he, early on?
Yeah,
And they have some good scenes together. So when he does turn out to be a traitor, you're like, oh, Eckersley, you so-and-so, how could you? So, yeah, but I thought his performance-wise was pretty good, actually.
Yes, agreed, dude. Okay, let's talk about, so there were two people responsible for Alpha Centauri. So you had a guy called Stuart Fell, and he was
that name well.
Yeah. So he was the body. He was in the suit, sort of shuffling around and doing all that. And then you had the voice of Alpha Centauri, which is Yasane Churchman, and she was obviously the original voice back on Curse of Peladon.
Yeah.
So a very unique voice, and do you know what? Now I've realised what else she's done. It's immediately obvious that she was the voice of all the spiders in the next story. But for some reason, you just don't... now that you know, you can hear it, can't you? In your head.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Planet Spiders.
It's exactly the same for me. I thought, what else has she done then? Because when we're doing our research, we always look up what the other actors have been in and so on. And she's done loads of stuff. And they must have reused her voice. Way later on. So the Empress of Mars episode from 2017, they reused some of her dialogue for that story. You know, the Capaldi story.
Yes, I remember. Yeah, when she pops up on the screen.
Yeah. So they reused some stuff for her, and then outside of that, she's done loads of stuff, loads of radio work, like loads. So she's had a really long career, like way back from the 30s, dude. 1938 was her first role.
She'll be 99 years old soon, mate. So her birthday is on the 14th of May. She's currently 98. So
well, she passed away, dude. She passed away.
Oh, no, really?
No, hold on. Whoa, hold on. She's still alive. She's 98. Sorry, it's her spouse, Tony Pilgrim, that died back in 2015. Sorry, dude.
Thought we'd lost Alpha for a minute there.
Sorry, yeah, my mistake. But yeah, she's still with us. 98, mate, as you said. In May, crikey.
Incredible.
So a career that's from the 30s all the way through to her last job was that Doctor Who episode that they reused some stuff. And so, yeah, dude. But an unmistakable voice, right? And although it's a little bit corny, a little bit cheesy, and a little bit, you know, it comes across immediately like a silly kind of voice. But then... you have to kind of do something, right? This is an alien we're talking about, so you have to do something that's different. But funny and helpful and loyal to an absolute point. Immediately loyal to the Doctor, you know, and really try. It's just a lovable character. I love Alpha Centauri. She's awesome.
Yeah, it's
awesome.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say it's true because I've grown to absolutely love Alpha. But, you know, the first time I watched Curse of Fenric, you know, going back the first time I heard that voice and saw the costume, I mean, I'm sure like a lot of people, I was like, what on earth is this? You know, but I have grown to absolutely love Alpha Centauri as a character. Like you said, because I love the you know, as I've got to know the character, I love the contradictions of everything about the character is just a contradiction. The voice, the look, everything. So yeah, you've got to love Alpha. And I did feel a little bit sorry when there's that scene where obviously, you know, they couldn't show Alpha being knocked over, so it cuts to Alpha on the floor going, "You help me!" You know, and they have to help the character up, and it cuts so that they can stand old Stuart fell up in the costume. But it also, I can't help but notice that Alpha's head always looks like it's you know, so close to falling off as he's bobbing up and down those corridors. It's only just staying on the costume, isn't it? It's you can see the little gap between the head at sometimes. So fair play to Stuart Fell for keeping the costume together. But yeah, you got to love Alpha. The whole look, the voice, everything is so bizarre, but in a good way.
Oh, in a good way. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely a good way.
Yeah, it's going to be it's going to be weird, even though we haven't got to score. We'll get to that in a minute. But I'm not throwing many negatives at this at the minute, dude. I was going to say
my score, without giving too much away, is not exactly high for this story. But this is what I mean about how contradicting it is for me, because I didn't enjoy watching it particularly. I did find it such a slog to get through, and yet there are all these positives I have for it. It's a real contradiction for me, this one, mate.
Samesies, yeah. Before we get on to the Doctor and Sarah, what did you think to Alan Bennion then as the Ice Lord, Azaxia? Because he's played this a few times, right? So he was in Seeds of Death, obviously the first Peladon story, now this one. Each time playing a different Ice Lord, if you know what I mean. But has kind of got this down pretty much nailed now at this point for the third time of doing it, this kind of hissy, do you know what I mean? That sort of classic old school Ice Warrior or Ice Lord voice sort of thing. But not what's the word I'm looking for? It's not kind of overplayed, but just really, really buying into it, you know, for this character especially, and a bit like Alpha Centauri, you really have to throw yourself into it and not really care about being mocked or anything like that. You just have to do it, you know, buy into it. You're an alien, you know, in this case he's a Martian. You've just got to do it. So I thought he was very cool, actually.
Yeah, no, I liked him too, actually, and he is on the borderline of sort of straying into the sort of over the top camp pantomime villain, but he manages to just hold it back a bit, you know, because he's a bit shouty and he swoops around with his cape and everything. But yes, I liked him in it, and I also like the look of him. Like, I think the actual, because he's unmistakably an Ice Warrior, but you can distinguish him from the others, you know. I just likes the actual design of him, which is quite simple when you look at it, but you know, the mask and the helmet and the cape, you know, everything. I just think he looks pretty cool as a character. And if you imagine him being sort of done now, if you imagine that outfit with sort of today's money, it's a cool classic design, isn't it? I think it would work really well. But yeah, performance-wise, Alan Bennion, he's good. Like you said, he's giving it a bit of oomph, which is what that character needs. And he does come across as a bit scary at times. He's quite shouty, and you know, he's not afraid to wipe out a few people, is he? You know, you wouldn't mess with him, which is what you want from your Ice Lord, isn't it? You want to be scared of this character. So
yeah, for sure,
pretty good, mate.
Yeah. And then and like you said, I think I think Lenny Mayne, you know, earlier on you mentioned that he really tried to do something with the sort of limited sets and production and stuff like that. There's one scene where, and they only did it for one scene, where you know, the lenses in the helmet that Azaxia has got, they put that on the camera lens, and sort of move really quickly as if it's like a first person sort of view. So that was cool, because you got to see a little bit of like what he sees, or that character sees, which is kind of cool. But yeah, Alan Bennion, pretty sweet as the old as another Ice Lord.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that little scene, actually, because it was little moments like that where I thought, okay, yeah, Lenny Mayne is definitely trying to keep this story going, just because that, again, probably quite time consuming as well, just to get that little 2-second shot from the Ice Warriors point of view. So that's what I mean. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. Little bits like that Lenny threw in just to try and make the story a bit more exciting, I think is appreciated.
Yeah. Just very, very quickly before I get on to Sarah Jane and Liz Sladen, there was a character at the beginning called Nexus. He's at the very beginning. He's like an alien sort of engineer that's working with Eckersley. And he gets obliterated early on by the machine. By Agador.
By Agador, yeah.
The funny thing is, so he's wearing lenses as well. So he looks like this kind of sort of Narnia-esque fawn sort of character. And he's got these eye lenses in, but unlike Azaxia, what they've done is they've drilled holes because they're not sort of semi-transparent like Azaxia's lenses in his helmet. These are like opaque. So they've drilled these round holes, but they haven't drilled them in the same place on each lens. So he looks boss-eyed. He's got like this one hole in the middle on one side and then it's off-center on the other one. So, so that character looks like he's a boss-eyed sort of furry alien. But
I didn't notice that, mate, but that's probably because I was watching on the iPad. It was quite a small screen. I'll look out for that next time I watch this, which could be a while, but yeah, I'll look out for that. I didn't notice it.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah. Sarah Jane then, Elizabeth Sladen. So she was so normally with companions back in the classic years, they normally, and I don't want to sort of oversimplify this at all, but typically they fall into two boxes, right? You have one box on one side where they don't really get a lot to do, but they're in it quite a lot. And essentially they're just with the Doctor. And then you've got the other box where they have stuff to do. Like, if it wasn't for them doing this thing or these things, then the Doctor wouldn't have succeeded without the companion doing those things. Where do you think Sarah Jane falls on this one? Because I feel like she's in that box where she does have stuff to do. Because there's a bit where, there's several scenes where the Doctor's gone off somewhere with Gebek, or he's doing something with the Queen, or he's off being killed supposedly somewhere. So Sarah teams up with Alpha Centauri a few times, or she teams up with Eckersley before we find out he's a traitor. So she does have quite a bit to do, I would say, but she doesn't have it's weird because the few things that she does do, they're not like big, massive consequential things. Like if she didn't do them, then they wouldn't have succeeded. But at the same time, it feels like she's busy, if that makes sense. Like she's doing stuff, but great performance from her though, as always.
Yeah, no, I totally get what you mean. It is a good performance from Liz Sladen as always, but I have to say I don't like the way that Sarah was written much during the Pertwee era. I think she comes into her own once she pairs up with Tom. I think it feels like a bit of a different character to me, Sarah Jane, during the Pertwee story she's in. Example was like when they land and she's moaning and wanting to go home, and I don't feel much chemistry between her and the Doctor, between her and the third Doctor. There are a couple of nice moments. The very last scene where they get in the TARDIS, there's a little sort of moment between the two of them where the Doctor makes a joke and stuff. But most of the time in this story, they are apart. You're right. They kind of get split up and do their own thing. And she is kept fairly busy. But she's not quite the Sarah Jane. And this is down to the writing, by the way. Nothing to do with Liz's performance. It's down to the way the character's being written, because they haven't quite grasped Sarah Jane as a character yet. It's still quite early days for the character, isn't it? So she never quite feels the same character to me in the Pertwee era.
Right, gotcha.
But it's down to the writing, mate. Nothing to do with the performance. And I think in a way, she sort of starts to go more towards the Sarah Jane that we know and love in the second half of this story. Once she starts digging in and getting stuff done, I think, oh yeah, that's Sarah Jane. But early on in the story, she's just a bit whiny. And as I said, not much chemistry with Pertwee, I don't think. But yeah, she definitely starts coming into her own as the story progresses. And obviously once we get into Tom's era, we know she becomes one of the best love companions there is. So But yeah, just always feels a bit different to me during this time.
Okay. Okay.
How many stories has she done at this point? Not many, is it?
Not that many, no. So I would agree with that, dude. I think, I would agree with that. Like, certainly she doesn't quite have the same chemistry that she has with Tom Baker once she settles into those stories in the next series. And I mean, there's a few nice moments with them, but there isn't that sort of twinkle in each other's eyes as they're bouncing off each other in some of like she does with Tom Baker. I mean, there's a few nice moments. Yeah, there are a few nice moments in this, but I think I agree, dude. And she does come alive a little bit more towards the second part of it. Yeah, you're bang on with that, I think, dude. But she's great though. Elizabeth Sladen is great as Sarah Jane. Like you said, it's just the way that those two have been directed, or the way that she's been portrayed from a script perspective. She doesn't quite. Yeah. Mr. Pertwee then. Old John Pertwee. Interesting story, this one, dude, because all the ingredients are there for a third Doctor performance. For me, you've got the detective work going on. You've got the odd little scrap where we know that John Pertwee and his stunt double.
Which is very noticeable at times, isn't it? It's the wig. The wig is too grey and too big. Yeah.
It's we know that they like getting into a scrap, which is all good. And then you've got the shouty Doctor. You've got the Doctor where he's frustrated. He's trying to get through to Autron, and he's trying to get through to the Queen, and he's trying to get through to the miners, and he's frustrated, and he can see the end goal if only people would listen to him. And then you've got like a little bit of the only thing I'd say that's not in this story, which is fairly obvious because this story overall doesn't feel like a science fiction story. This feels like more of a fantasy, old school kind of sort of story. There is no sort of techno gabble. There's no building stuff. There's no, wiring and welding going on. There's no reversing polarities. You know what I mean? There's no all that sort of stuff going on. So the other ingredients are there though, but I just feel like he's at that point where he's like, I'm out the door soon. And I don't mean, how do I say it? I honestly don't think that he means that intentionally. I'm not anyway suggesting that he turned up on set and people asked how he was. And he was like, yeah, I'm all right. I just want to get this out of the way because I'm off soon. What I mean is you could tell that perhaps subconsciously he was thinking that, because a lot of his scenes and stuff, they're a little bit slower, like how he delivers his lines and how he does stuff. He's just a little bit slower than he has been in previous stories. So he's just a lot more chilled, and what it's like when you're leaving school or you're leaving a job, you just don't really, the stakes are not as high anymore. Do you know what I mean? You don't feel as much pressure because you're going to be going soon. So although he's very professional as an actor, I feel, and would never purposefully come across as like, I don't care. I just feel like he's slowing down just a wee bit in this one, but still very good, but just a little bit, just not 100% or 110 like we've seen in, up to that point.
Yes, I absolutely agree with you, mate. I mean, I thought Pertwee was good in it, absolutely. But there's no. I think you just used a great word there. He is very professional. He's delivering the lines. He's giving a great performance. But is there any fire in the belly? No. It's like you said, in the next story, he'll be leaving and he'll be gone. It's not that he's checked out. He's still absolutely delivering the goods. Yeah. But it's a natural thing that, if you think of the Third Doctor in Inferno, where he's dashing across the rooms, and my goodness, is that, to me, is one of his best performances. I love Pertwee in that story. Yeah. He's absolutely on fire. I can't say the same about this. And it's a natural thing. It's nothing against him. I'm not saying he's like given up or like got one foot out the door already. He's absolutely professional, absolutely giving a good performance. But just naturally, you're just winding down. Like you said, like with any job, you're just winding down. So in other words, there's no sort of real standout moment for me in this. There's no bit where I'm like, God, Pertwee was really giving it some then, that scene or whatever. It's just delivering a very good performance and doing what's on the page, which is absolutely fine. And he is good in it. It's not like Frontier in Space, where I said he just seemed a bit off. Remember I said to you that he was very flat in that story. I didn't feel that at all in this one. I felt like he was absolutely in the zone, into the story, and it's, you know, some nice moments with his doctor. But yeah, just missing that sort of fire, I think, that, you know, you get with a doctor early on. But that's just a natural thing, you know. As I said, the next story he'll be sadly moving on. So yeah, we're on the same page, I think, with that. So he's great, obviously, as the Doctor. Just he is good at it. Yeah,
not quite on fire as in previous ones, but still a good performance though. And then
like the bit where he. Sorry, go on.
No, go on, dude.
I was just going to say, I do like the bit where he's thrown down the pit of Agador and he's like, you remember me and all this. And then it's quite funny, that end scene where he brings him out like a sniffer dog. I'm like, what the heck is going on here? Yeah. That is a strange wrap up to the story of poor old Agador.
Mm-hmm. And one thing that I did like about John Pertwee in this one, and I'm not 100% sure if it was in the script every time, but he calls a lot of people old chap, which is really lovely.
Old chap, yeah.
Even Agador, even the monster, you know, he calls him old chap as well. And that's a lovely little thing. It just suits John Pertwee so well, those little sayings. So, and then lastly, like we always do with the old music, so Dudley Simpson still rocking on this one. I wasn't too blown away by it. It wasn't as out there as some of his other ones that we've seen in other stories. It was okay. Not too bad. What I mean by that is, after I've watched this story and like a few days later, the themes don't pop in my head and I'm not whistling them as I'm doing stuff or whatever. So, but not too bad though.
No, I felt the same. Perfectly good score from Dudley in this one, but like nothing stood out. There wasn't, normally with the music, if there's a bit that I think, I liked that, I'll make a little note of it. Like I said about the electronic music in, which one was it recently where I said Dudley did, I think it was even Frontier in Space, but sometimes there are things that jump out at me and I think, I like what Dudley did there. But this one, just a little bit run of the mill maybe, but perhaps, still good.
Yeah, perhaps, yeah. A bit paint by numbers a little bit, which is obviously, again, we are not saying that he sat down and thought, I can't be bothered, so I'll just go by the numbers. It just, you know, the overall end product kind of feels that way. A little bit, yeah. Anything else on your notes, dude, before we get to scores?
No. Yeah. I'm just laughing because the very last word I've written on my notes is boring. I feel I've been a bit harsh, actually, but I haven't got any other notes. That's the thing. We've spoken through this for an hour now, and most of the stuff we said is positive. So I think our scores are going to be quite interesting.
Yeah, okay. I think it's you to go first,
nothing else on my notes.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to go for a 5 out of 10, mate, because I just thought it was very run-of-the-mill. I don't know, like I said, there's lots of positives like we've discussed. It just doesn't come together. It's like all the ingredients of the cake are there, and I can't wait to eat it, but when I did, it's like I've undercooked it, and it's not quite come together. So it's because I did find it a bit of a slog, I've got to be honest. So it's a 5 out of 10 for me.
Okay, I'm going to share your score on that. I'll be honest with you, before we started going through it, I had a 4.
I
had a 4 out of 10 just because I just wasn't blown away, and I felt like, you know, like we said earlier on, it's just those round and round and round scenes that just take you around in circles for what feels like forever, you know. But then, as we often do, as we've spoken through it and we've analysed stuff and gone through it, it isn't as bad, you know. So I'm going to go middle of the road. I'm going to go 5.
Well, actually, that's very interesting, mate. Because firstly, I thought you were going to be higher than me, and secondly, I had 4 out of 10 written down, and I changed it to a 5 about 20 minutes ago. As we were talking through it, I thought, maybe 4's a bit unfair. So I actually changed mine from a 4 to a 5 because I think we've just said there is a lot of good stuff in it. It's just a bit bland, blandly delivered.
A little bit. Okay, so 5s all round then from us. What did our listeners think? We had a few on Twitter and Facebook. So over on Twitter, Matthew Purchase, he says, watching Monster of Peladon, it's the most forgettable Doctor Who. It's not good, but it's in no way bad, just very mediocre, which I think is a fair summary. Doctor Who Home
Yes.
says, I watched this one episode at a time and thoroughly loved it. Like many other six-parters, this one definitely improves when you spread them out. Love the Ice Warriors and Pertwee's costume is fire. 7 out of 10. Nick H says, hi gents, worthy but boring. 4 out of 10. 4.
Oh dear.
Chippy T, as you guys have been saying, Who wasn't meant to be binge watched with a lot of trimming. This is a decent story. A literal cliffhanger, scary-ish monster and lots of intrigue. Good performances from Joe and the Doctor make this worth a viewing. 6 from me, 7 with a decent trim. Okay.
Are they getting confused with Kurtz because he said Joe there?
Oh,
Not Sarah.
potentially, yeah, potentially. And then lastly, just Jay. It just says, really fun story. Ice Warriors are the most underrated of all villains. Enjoyed this one though throughout an 8.5. Jay,
okay.
liking this one, yeah. Over on Facebook, Charlie Turner says, this one feels like it goes on and on forever. Normally 6-parters in Pertwee's run are mostly good. This one isn't one of them. I do, however, love Alpha Centauri. The sets and the Ice Warriors have reverted back to their villainous ways. After Curse of Peladon, everything else seems to crumble. Not a convincing way to send off the Ice Warriors during the classic series, and this sequel to Curse didn't need to happen. A 3 out of 10 for Pertwee, Liz and Alpha, as they were the best part. Mark Hugill says, around 5 episodes too long, a snooze fest. 2 out of 10.
Dear.
Alex Bobbins, R.I.P. Agador, Haroon, 5 out of 10. And
absolutely.
Lastly, Andrew Stewart. It's quite a long review, but it just goes on to say, nowhere near as bad as people claim. As a Scotsman, the Ice Warriors wanting to leave the Galactic Federation reminds us of me wanting to leave the UK. Interesting. And Ortron reminds me of the Prime Minister. He says the story is okay. It goes on to give it a 6.5 out of 10.
Cool, fair enough.
So there's the scores from some of our listeners. Thank you very much, guys, for getting in contact with your scores. That's very cool. So I think the average score for this dude is actually, because there was a few 7s and 8s in there, the average score is actually probably a 6.
Yeah, I reckon.
On average, yeah. Alrighty. What story are we doing next time, dude?
Well, we've still got some Tom Bakers to get through, so we're going to be diving into Destiny of the Daleks next week.
Destiny
of the Daleks, yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Righto. So that's going to do it for the Monster of Peladon and episode 391, dude.
Alrighty.
Thank you very much for listening to another episode of the Big Blue Box. That was episode 391 and our review of the Monster of Peladon. Thank you very much to those of you that sent in your scores, much appreciated as always. And next time, as Adam said, we're going over to the 4th Doctor for a Destiny of the Daleks, so get your iPlayer fired up. All the episodes are still on BritBox, I believe. The contract hasn't expired for that yet. So yeah, fire that up or get your DVDs, whatever you want to watch it on, because we'll be asking for your thoughts as always. Until then, make sure you're following and subscribing to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Just do a search for the Big Blue Box, you'll find us on there. If this is your first time listening, then welcome aboard. It would be great to have you for future episodes, so make sure you're following. And long timers, the Grizzled Ancients, welcome back. It's good to have you all here. And you can listen for free over on the website as well, bigblueboxpodcast.co.uk. All the episodes are on there. Plus, you can check out all the articles and reviews from our very cool and talented writing team. So check those out as well. We're on the socials too. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and Threads. Just do a search for us or a link on the website. Come and chat Doctor Who. And we have a free Discord server, so hop in there as well. Also, don't forget to remember to check out Adam's channel on YouTube. It is The Geek's Handbag.
The Geek's Handbag, yeah. Go check out my YouTube channel.
YouTube.
Yeah.
Go and check him out. YouTube. Adam's on the socials too, under the same name, The Geek's Handbag. So go and stalk him, have a chat about Doctor Who and other geeky stuff. Alrighty, we'll see you next time for episode 392. Until then, my name's Gary.
My name's Adam.
And remember,